Here's the best man right here. Here's the best lady.
The first time that I talked to Mom and Dad about all of this, they were having their 50th wedding anniversary in January of '95. We had planned this big party for them, so I came out for it.
I want to thank them for being really great parents. Neither of my parents are great preachers or teachers, but I've learned, and I know Joe and Maria have learned a lot from them just by their example. They taught us how to practice love. They taught us how to love each other. And for that, I'm eternally grateful.
They were real happy. It was like a big moment in their life. The next morning, we were sitting down, we're having coffee, and I said, Mom and Dad, there's something I need to talk to you about. Do you remember Father Birmingham?
I felt terrible about Father. He had me crying that day when he came home to tell us. Sitting in that chair and he came home to tell us, how I felt.
I says, wait a while. Is he making up stories, For a while I thought that was thinking, was he telling me something, and I just couldn't grasp the whole thing. I couldn't.
Well, maybe you think that's why he never told anybody, because he thought people wouldn't believe him.
Well, yeah, at that time, he was the only one. He thought he was the only one.
Right.
And he probably figured, I can't shame my family or stuff like that. And that's why he kept all that damn poison into him.
They feel guilty, they feel embarrassed, they feel like they should have done something. Dad kept saying, if I had known it, I'd have killed the guy. He probably would have. Mom, she said, well, Sister Grace, the Sister Superior at St. James at the time, she's in Beverly, and maybe you and I should go over there and see what she knows about all of this. I said, yeah, right on, Mom, let's go, And I said, well, the reason I'm here is to talk about Father Birmingham. And Sister Grace's face kind of went white. She kind of looked at me like, don't tell me it happened to you too.
And we could tell she knew something, but she couldn't say too much because,
And she basically said, yep. Something happened with Father Birmingham. We tried to report it.
She couldn't say nothing. But if Paul had an idea, she knew what it was all about.
We put all of our findings together and we wrote a demand letter to the Archdiocese. Matt McNamara, my lawyer, he had some information from inside the Archdiocese that McCormick was about to be appointed bishop. You're not just indicting this priest, you're basically saying that McCormick was his friend who protected him, his friend who promoted him, and now the Archdiocese is going to make this guy a bishop. About 2 weeks later, we heard back from them. My lawyer said to me, this is the fastest turnaround I've ever seen in one of these cases. They said that they wanted to have a meeting. I said that I wanted McCormick to be at the meeting. I started laying it out to McCormick. I said, when I went to you, you told me Birmingham disappeared out of your life back when you left St. James, and you reported him. For about 10 years of his career, you were actually in charge of ministerial personnel. And he started backtracking. I said, oh, well, no, Paul, no, you misunderstood me. I didn't say that I never knew anything about him. No, of course I knew about him. We were priests and we were in the same archdiocese, but we weren't close. I had a role in the personnel decisions, but it wasn't all my decision. Basically, the cardinal appoints the pastors. I just said, not only did he molest me, but he clearly molested hundreds of people. The church basically moved him around from parish to parish. You were involved in it. You told me you wanted to help me. How do you think it helps me to lie to me about this? It would have been a lot more helpful for me if the first time you just said, look, I blew it. I didn't stop him when I was in St. James, and I didn't stop him when I was in charge of him. We were friends. And he said, if we knew back then what we know now about the effects of sexual abuse on teenagers and young boys, then, of course we'd have acted differently. But we didn't know back then. I said, you left St. James and you went back to Boston College and got your master's in social work. You never studied or had an inkling that a priest having sex with an altar boy might have some effect on this kid? Day 2, the mediator says, the Archdiocese wants to give you $20,000. And I said, isn't that strange that that's the maximum I could get if I went to court because of charitable immunities? He said, well, that's exactly it. And he said to me, you've got a good job now, and you're fairly well together, and you're not an alcoholic or a drug addict, and you're not a molester yourself, and you don't show all the symptoms of a lot of the things that some of these guys have just gone off the deep end. And I just listened to him for about 10 minutes going on about this, and at one point I almost jumped across the table and just grabbed him by his throat. You're telling me that because I kind of held it together, through some inner strength or just incredible powers of repression, I don't merit some treatment here? I'm talking about a lifetime of damage. Why do you think I should accept that? He kind of looked at me and said, okay, I'm starting to see the damage. And finally he came back, he said $60,000. They're never going to go any higher than that. A lawyer said, Paul, you're not dealing with a bunch of pious little saints. They've got the insurance claims figured out, they've got their legal exposure figured out. To get $60,000 out of them is pretty remarkable. You keep pushing and you're going to drive yourself crazy. My plan had been that I was going to get the money from them and then I was going to go public, because by then I was really pissed off. But by the time I came out of that negotiating room, I just wanted to go back home, up to the desert in New Mexico, and just forget about it all. It was just too painful to go through again. I didn't want it to be my life cause. I wanted to be able to speak the truth about it, but when I got up in the morning, I didn't want that to be my defining issue of every day.
About a year later, John McCormick is ordained a bishop. And 3 years after that, Pope John Paul II appoints him Bishop of Manchester, New Hampshire.